This episode of Cutter's Rule is sponsored by Courtside Rehab and Training. Dean over at Courtside Rehab and Training is a paddle player who is focused on racket-related injuries. Check out his Instagram. I'd also like to give a shout out to Paddle Hut. Check their Instagram. This is the type of hats that they produce. They also have great sweatshirts, and there's also an awesome Etsy site that has personalized gifts for Christmas for your favorite paddle player. This is episode 3 of season 2 of the Cutter's Rule podcast. I am honored to have back the announcers. I've got Diamond Dave Broderick, Mike Raleigh, and Guy Moore, and the paddle godmother, Patty Hogan. We're going to start with some of the exciting new changes to the APTA this year. Who wants to jump in and tell us about that?
Well, I'll start. I'll talk about the addition of a fifth Grand Prix for the first time for the APTA. They introduced Grand Prix under Scott Bondurant. It was a great initiative that he had to showcase the game's great talent, try to get as many great players together, and you could build your season around the Grand Prix. But as the sport has grown, and last year we had 19 tour events, I think, 20, including nationals. There's so many venues who have stepped up to the plate for the APTA and have just provided a wonderful environment for the game's players. Everybody loves going to certain places. And so this year we have 5 Grand Prix. The first one's coming up next weekend in Chicago. Then we'll go into Aronimink will be hosting a Grand Prix right after Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving, actually. Boston is a Grand Prix once again. Short Hills is a Grand Prix once again. And then the Midwesterns has been moved very late in the calendar. It'll be the warm-up for nationals, and that's a Grand Prix this year. So it's a great change of date for the Midwestern event. I think the tour is set up for an amazing season. And there's a couple other good changes. Who wants to talk about the other changes? Maybe Guy and Dave, because you called an amazing men's final the other day.
Yeah, I would say, the biggest change that we all wanted to see is the length of matches and times. And I think the APTA has done a great job with eliminating these long matches with this no-ad scoring server's choice. I think it's early in the season been a huge, huge success. And more importantly, everyone, there's just a lot of player buy-in to it. I think everyone appreciates it. I've heard zero negative feedback on it. And even before the season, I was talking to a couple of the players on the men's side because some of those men's matches, especially the men's finals last year, went so long that I don't have to mention names, but they just said to me, do you think I want to stand on the court 5 or 6 hours? No, I don't, but I will do that if that's what it takes to win. But these teams will find a way to win with this new scoring. I think it's been a huge success.
Dave made an observation, Sean, the other day during the match that he thinks that the no ad could impact some teams more than others. So Dave and Mike, I would love your take on that.
Well, I'll let Dave start off. I'll feed off what he's got to say here.
So, yeah, I think to kind of like what Guy said, even with the no ad scoring, the players are going to figure out how to change their game plans a little bit, how to play differently. I think if you're a grinded out style team, the no ad scoring might not help you because, if you keep the ball in play 200 times a point, well, even if you lose that point, knowing that you're going to go and play the same exact point again, it's kind of comforting to you, and it's maybe mentally challenging for the other team that you're playing. But if the other team knows that, hey, look, we can just give it our all for this 1 point, and we're not going to play 15 deuces and play a 3-hour match, then, I think it's a little bit more mentally easing for teams knowing that it might be 1 long point, not 20 long points. And, again, I think it might hurt the grind out team. I think it might benefit the teams that like to play fast-paced, fast action because, with that fast-paced pressure type of game, there is additional pressure that, hey, if you lose this point, it's not only a point you're losing, it's the whole game now you're losing.
Sorry, Mike, not only that, but it changes what a 40-30 point means. if you're the team that has the lead, because you almost got two shots at it if you are a team that wants to go after it a little bit. I mean, there's going to be some tactics that come into play here for sure.
Well, and I think the ability for the serving team to get to pick who has to return that ball, because the old days of the deuce point going where the returner got the choice. I think APTA is clearly saying that the server is at a disadvantage. And, areas I'd like to see and questions I have about this going forward, it definitely has affected the pace of play, that there were not those matches. I mean, how many deuce games did we have? I haven't watched that full match that you guys called. I think it got to 4-all in the second set. How many deuce games did they have?
I was thinking about it, and there were definitely more deuce games in the men's that I called in Montclair than there were. I did 2 men's matches from Baltimore, and the one that Patty and I did, there were maybe between the 2 sets only a handful of them, and I think the finals with Guy and I, there may have only been 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the most deuce games.
But you had it at Baltimore. I think there was at least 2 in the first set. And then I think in the first 8 games of the second set, I want to say that there was 2 or 3 as well. Is that right?
Yeah, like I said, I think throughout the whole match, there may have only been 4 at the most, maybe 5. But like I said, we had matches in Montclair the 2 weeks before, and I don't know if the weather had anything to do with that, but it seemed like there were one set we had 5 deuce games in one of the matches I did.
And I wonder, this is where you could geek out on the stats and see how many breaks to holds, and if that has an effect. Like, is it, where I'm going here? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, no, you know what? I definitely can tell you, and I remember this, but in the first set that Urdoya and McNerney won in Montclair, they won all 4 deuce games in the first set. Now, I don't know how many of them were breaks, how many were holds, but I mean, they won the first set. I think it was 6-1, 6-2, yeah. But they won 4 games, winning 4 points, 4 games. And that was a big, kind of to take a big lead.
Yeah.
Well, for sure, with the no ad scoring, it's going to be momentum, right? I mean, if you're the one winning those games or the one losing those games, I mean, the momentum is going to shift tremendously. So
right.
it adds a whole different layer in a good way, in my opinion.
And the ironic part is, paddles before this, even with the 5-hour matches, paddle's a big momentum swing game. Where, you look at this and you have a team that's down 3-love, and now all of a sudden they win a couple of deuce games in a row. Well, now that strings them up and that gets them right back in it quickly.
So Dave, question for you. Even though we just called this match with Nunez, Powers, Regalado, Salazar, they were down 4-1 in the second set, and all of a sudden it's back to 4-all. Regalado, Salazar, I mean, really didn't have the momentum after Nunez, Powers came back to 4-all. I mean, there was a game or 2 in there, no ad, right?
Right. And Nunez and Powers won those games. And next thing you know, we were talking about it, where I think it was Regalado Salazar was serving at 4-3. And I said to Guy, and that may have even been a deuce game. And I said to Guy, this could potentially be the game. This could be the game for the whole match.
Exactly.
And you guys, thanks to Court Director, I was just trying to look up the stats, because you'll see those live match stats now that come off the umpire's chair and goes directly into the streaming. We'll talk about some of the streaming vendors this season. That's a big change for us. But, when the match is live, we have the ability now to pull up, and we could answer those questions. But I just went to Court Director, which is a great thing that gives me live updates all throughout every tournament. Which helps us announcers knowing if we're going to be on a court and a match. We need to know how long the match is, before us. So we have to adjust our schedules accordingly. But Court Director is doing a great job, and that's one of the changes we'll see. And I think that maybe brings us into a quick chat, Sean, about we have 4 vendors for the first time in the sport. Platform tennis, it's just bursting at the seams. And that's, there's proof that we have 4 different vendors who are bringing it to your homes and living rooms every single weekend. And we have Joho. We've got the group out of Chicago, Mike's Pals. What are they called, Mike?
Who's it? CSM?
Yeah, CSM, Matt McClure. Mark Ennis' Joho. We've got Pro Flight with Drew Broderick. And then we've got the new one, Jake Koretsky, who is very involved with the sport and behind the scenes in many ways. Came up, the guy's a brainiac. Talk about AI intelligence. He's a walking, I feel like he's AI. He's of that next generation, understands so many things, and he's spent weeks and weeks explaining a new program that went into, we used it this weekend down in Baltimore, where Dave became a producer this weekend in front of our own eyes. So now he's the producer, and we start matches on our own. We know how to adjust the commercials. We are learning how to troubleshoot a lot of stuff. So it's taken a lot of work on all the announcers' parts to learn this new software program. But going forward, it's going to give the APTA the opportunity, like this weekend, where all the quarters were shown, because Jake Koretsky set up four courts of cameras. And, we're going to have growing pains. We knew we would have growing pains with it. There's a little bit of noise that you could hear with it. A couple little glitches, but Jake's amazing, and he's working to iron it out. So I think it's going to just be able to bring more action. And, sometimes we don't even have enough commentators to cover all the matches that are streamed, but it's fine. You can just go onto one of 4 channels and watch many more of the teams. And I think that's especially important for all the up-and-comers, because it's such a benefit. If you have a match that's been on the stream and you get to listen to Dave and Guy and Mike talk about it and explain stuff, it's really how the game, all the players have improved, because they get virtual lessons from our AI guys right here on the screen.
That's a good. Here's a question I think we would throw out there to you guys: is how is the live stream affected not only the new players, but y'all were talking about it in the finals that I can almost guarantee that they're rewatching these matches, and if they're not playing in the match, they're if I've got to play Regalado Salazar, I'm going to do everything I can to find something. So how important to the improvement of the players at every level, but even at I'm speaking specifically almost to the highest levels. How much does that lend, like, for their advancement so quick? And being able to jump in and be competitive.
Right. I think that we have seen players' trajectory. You take Paige and Lopez. Look at them.
Yeah.
This is really their second full season on tour, and they're incredible, having reached the finals of nationals last year. And they study it. Everybody looks at, all of the players look at that. I talked to Macie Elliott today. She went out in the semis with a different partner than we're used to seeing her. We'll talk about that later. But I think every level benefits from it. And I know all the people that we spend our days coaching, who are, the higher PTIs in our sport, they love it, and they get engaged with the sport, and they know the players by their first names. And, they're the ones who are going to tournaments. And I think it's given a lot of club level players a lot of courage as well, because they sort of understand what the game looks like at a higher level. And then I think more of them are entering tournaments, it seems. It seems like years ago, you didn't get that many, especially in the women players, who actually went into those tournaments, where I feel like now with all the PTI and all the levels, I think most of the people we coach, Dave and Mike, would you say most of the people that you coach on teams in Chicago and Jersey play at least 3 tournaments a year now?
I'd say I have more people that are playing tournaments. I don't know the number, but but that's kudos to the APTA that are providing more options as well.
Well, sorry, Sean, guys too as well. It's not only a matter of teams and players watching their opponents, but they're watching themselves, because as we all know, you could have a completely different view of what you thought happened on the court. But I was talking to one of the best players in the game today, and they said, hey, I haven't had time I was asking her, without giving too much away. What did you think of your match? And they said, you know what? I haven't had time to go back and watch myself yet.
What color hair did she have, Guy?
Don't know yet. Don't know. Pink, okay. Just like your hat.
Your hat, Guy.
Yeah. Dave, what are you smiling about in those gazelles?
Because I don't have a pink hat on.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, I mean, the live stream's beneficial to both sides of it. And I would say this, that going off of what Patty just mentioned, the trajectory of some of these players, all you have to do, everyone, is look at the draws. I mean, there's teams beating some of the top teams in the country that never would have happened before. It's happening in the quarters. It's happening in the semis of some of these tournaments. And people learn quickly by watching the live stream. And they learn about their opponents. They learn about themselves. I mean, look at how dominant Regalado Salazar were last year, all the way through Detroit. They hadn't lost a match. And not only that, Dave, you and I were talking about when we were watching, I know I mentioned it a few times, Regalado Salazar are playing different this year. They're playing tighter to the net. They're playing faster. Trust me, they're doing that because they watched. And they want to make adjustments, whether it works or not, or whether they make other adjustments, fine. But, you know, Patty, your point too on the women's side, I mean, the game on the women's side is becoming so young, and there's so many talented players. I mean, Lopez and Page are a great example, but there's going to be more to follow soon. You're seeing it already.
I would say the best example of watching yourself or opponents, and I mean, nobody did it more than Graham. Graham would watch and has Excel spreadsheets on everybody's tendencies you could ever imagine.
Yeah, he's a walking video, isn't he?
He had a beautiful mind spreadsheet he shared with me, and it was like, you know, everything connected here and there, and I looked at it and I was like, that's pretty impressive. I can't even read the damn thing, and you know, but it was, I mean, I was like, will you share that with me? And he sent me a spreadsheet, and it had, you know, first, you know, drive error. Yeah, it just was too much information for me.
Yeah, it has player by player breakdown. I mean, he shared it with me too, so I got a glimpse of what goes on inside. And I don't want to digress, but I will tell you in terms of the technology. I was talking to somebody this week that it has developed AI technology to track a match and come up with real analytics on how many balls a player sees on what side, how the points were won. So I think there's going to be a big advancement in a short period of time. And I'm going to talk to them further, hopefully this week, because they're in beta testing, and I'd love to put it in at our club.
Yeah, it's phenomenal technology. It's really exciting, and I think all these advances, you know, I'm waiting for that we don't need an umpire. Sorry, Dave, Najedlik, Mike Hibskin, all these guys. Wouldn't it be great if we had the automatic line calls?
Well, I think, you know, when I love even the court director, or score director, court director, what is it called? Court director. You know, at the end of the set, it's giving you the percentage of points won versus, and just that simple stat is an amazing thing that I use as a teaching pro all the time. That if you say you win 50% of your points, you win 50% of the games, 50% of the sets. But if you flip it by 3% of the points won and you go to 53, you're at like 80-something% of matches won, which is, you know, incredible. And I think one match that Dave called, it was a 6-4, and the team that won at 6-4 won 53% of the points. And, you know, I said, ladies, you know, when you come off the court and you're like, you know, we were right there, you know, 6-4. I said, you were close, but it wasn't as close as you think it is. Because if we were to play this match 10 times and you only win that, you're going to lose it 8 out of 10 times. And, you know, I said, so it's kind of a bit of akin to saying, oh, they were really nice or the food was great. But the fact of the matter was, if you can find 3% more points to win or not lose, the game gets a lot closer than 6-4, 6-4. So I love that. I love that. Not quite a Graham level, but I love geeking out over that stuff.
Yeah, and I think, I used to watch a lot of ladies paddle matches on Tuesday when I taught at Beacon Hill, and I learned that frequently I couldn't really say much to people if they came after they came off the court, because they'd say, "Why'd we lose?" And I'd say, "Well, you did this or this," and sort of try to say it nicely, and they would shake their heads. No, that's not why we lost. Where I'd love to have data to back it up.
Yeah.
Because their perspective, I think data will help them see the game more and learn, the nuances of the game. So I'm excited by that.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie.
Well, I think even if you watched, if I remember correctly, from Baltimore, one team won a bigger percentage of points overall, but when it came to points won serving, it was only like a 4% difference. So again, it still goes in when we talk about, who has the advantage, the server or the returner. It still shows you that the server only needs a small advantage to win a set, because the return team still does get the bigger advantage.
But if the server's choosing which guy he can go to, right, that percentage should go up for him, I would imagine. I mean, a couple of years ago, I thought the stat was when Macie had that push serve, she had the highest hold percentage, and it was only like 53%. Does that sound right?
Could be.
I think it was. I recall a stat similar to that, where it was, at the men's level, they were holding it like 50. It was like I think this was something that Graham did. He took the quarterfinals of both nationals, and it was like 54 for men and 52 to 53% for women.
And Patty, I was watching an old Pro Flight paddle match that you called, and I think it was George Wilkinson who asked who had the highest male on the men's side hold percentage, and it was Parsons, who doesn't have a good serve, but he had Johan at the net, which makes all the difference in the world, right? So,
well, I mean, having Johan was helpful, but Mark, our most recent inductee into the Platform Tennis Hall of Fame, phenomenal player, and Mark could put a ball anywhere he wanted, and he didn't overexert himself needlessly, and he his serve got it done, and then he figured out the rest. Obviously, one of our game's greatest players ever, in my opinion. So I think it's twofold, and having Johan moving up there all the time is extraordinarily helpful, I'm sure.
Well, and then you have someone like Jared Palmer, going back to McNerney's stats. I mean, Palmer held his serve almost the entire time he played, as much as anyone could have. But not only was his serve good, but his first volley was amazing, right? The toughest shot in the game.
I don't think I've ever seen a player attack the first volley more than he did. Attack his volleys more than he did.
Exactly. And the thing about McNerney, too, everyone on this call, I mean, if you put him sitting next to us all right now, I mean, he could just reel off stats. So his mind is just churning. I mean, he is such a student of the game. I mean, how long has McNerney been playing paddle? He's been playing paddle a long time. And just to win his first national title last year, I mean, just an unbelievable student of the game. But he relies on those stats, and he grows his game around. And then, when we talk about the new scoring and this and that, it all comes down to matchups. It always will, and it always has been. Who are you playing? How well do they return? How good is the person's serve? I mean, that's going to affect all of it, and it has already.
Can you imagine choosing Mark Powers? Because I was watching the match that you and Dave did, and they chose to serve to Mark Powers.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, Guy and I were a little bit of lost at words for that.
We were what we did.
That was in the first set, right?
Yes.
It was like I was like, Guy, did they just choose to serve to Powers?
Dave, do you remember what I said to you? I said, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
They
by
won
the
that
way,
game, though. Didn't they win that game?
well, I'm sure Powers and Nunez won that game. I mean, I can't be sure, but
I don't think they did.
I think Regalado and Salazar won
They
that
did.
game. But they never served to him again in another Deuce game that I saw.
No,
Well,
no.
I will tell you this, Dave. I mean, just looking back on that, I watched it a little bit, not all the match again, but Powers' forehand was as good as I've ever seen it that match. I mean, it's always good, but it was exceptionally great.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He was swinging full every time, and he really didn't miss many of them.
No,
He missed the forehand until like early in the second set. It seemed like.
Yeah,
And he was thumping that thing.
Mm.
Here's a question I got for you. What do you think the single biggest change on the women's side? Which shot is the biggest? And this may be on the, we may be discussing something later, but this has been something I wanted to talk about. What shot do you think is the single biggest change in the women's game in the last 15 season and a half?
A roller?
An angry roller.
Angry roller.
Yes, not just a roller, but
Was
where
that the
they're
right
starting.
answer, Mike?
Pardon me?
Was
That's
that the
in
right
my
answer?
opinion. In my opinion, hands down, that's going to be the biggest differentiator in the game this year.
It's exactly
is
the
not only how
conversation.
well they hit it, but how well they defend it.
Right. I think it's, if you, very few, I saw Lisa Lalich hit some this weekend. I've never seen a woman hit a ball that way. I think it's gonna be an amazing thing to watch. And, we used to think that Nicolescu's roller was really, really heavy. And then all of a sudden you see these players who are so explosive and just such pure ball strikers. And I mean, I think that's going to be a monster weapon. And unless a player has awesome footwork and great racket skills, like B. Lopez showcased this weekend, very few people can run those down. So I think for me, that's why that's the most significant shot.
Yeah, I think I called Lalich and against Lopez and Page 2 weekends ago, and I think she hit one ball out of the court, off the back wire, and I was like, "That's impressive," and I'd be scared, to throw up a short lob in the backcourt, because I don't know if there's another shot that is going to be doing more damage than that.
Well, and I'll say this to you too, Mike, and Patty and I were talking about it before we went live tonight. Ellie Halbauer, her roller, so as much as Lalich has the power, I mean, Halbauer's roller is very similar to like Parsons' roller on the men's side when he played.
Weight. Yeah, it's got a lot of weight.
Yeah, he lets it drop low and she lets it drop low, but it's got so many RPMs on it, it never comes up. I mean, it's almost on the snowboard, and it's so deep in the court, and it's so fast. I mean, it hurts you so quickly.
She's got offense from both sides too. She's got a two-hand backhand roller as well.
She does.
Yeah.
You're right, Sean. I mean, she does, and she lets that drop too. And I mean, that's not characteristic in the game. He's talking about Parsons. I mean, his backhand roller was one of the best in the game too. Very similar, right, Patty?
Yeah.
I know we're talking about women. I do want to tell, because we brought them up last time. I think Pardo de Andre might have the best roller in the game right now. I mean, I watched him against Drew and Tomas, and he was just spinning Tomas around with his roller. Have you guys watched him at all?
Yeah. That's filthy. I mean,
I think on the last podcast, that was my team, up and coming team to watch.
It was.
Yeah, no, he's got a good roller, and I think when Patty mentioned Lalich, I think one of the things that are very similar to what she does and what Pardo de Andre does is that they wait, and they're so very patient. They don't rush the roller, so that at the last second they can change the speed of it off the same swing. Like, they can give you that fast one, and they do it a couple times, and you get ready to chase it. And then when you try to take off early, they kind of can roll it slower and kind of catch you. So, one of the things I think about the two of them in similar instances is that they're very calm and relaxed, and they're not jumpy when they hit their roller, that it allows them to change speed at the last second without affecting the shot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question for you. He's such a tall guy. What kind of impact? So where he's striking the ball is probably already over the net, right? Versus somebody that's a little bit shorter. Does that have any? Is that a stupid question, or is that valid?
No, I think it goes to the fact that because he's taller, he can let that ball. Like if I'm standing next to him, he's much taller than I am. I'm going to be hitting the ball. If I let it get to my waist, I'm going to be hitting it at a lower trajectory than if he's hitting it from his waist. And, he's taller than I am, so he actually has more time as well to let the ball drop than I do.
How about me, Dave?
You might have the most time to let it drop.
Yeah. I mean, Patty, that's all you could do is let it drop.
Exactly.
Do we want to dive into Montclair at all and talk a little bit about some of the interesting matches or what we saw, or does that work?
Sure. We saw our buddy Mick Gardoya, the host pro at Montclair, making his season debut and finale, possibly. Mick, former national champ with Sven Burrs, runs that great kickoff event at Montclair, and he played this year with Graham McNerney. They lost in the finals. It was a 3-setter, and that was a tournament won by our country's #1 team of Regalado and Salazar. So I love watching Mick Gardoya play. So I'm sorry that he doesn't play more, but that's okay. Maybe we'll get him back at another time. The thing that struck me about Montclair was, first of all, it was really warm. What was it, about 80 degrees out there? It was brutal. And so that made it a little bit challenging. But I saw a new team, like one of the new teams on the men's side that I like, Leon and Munoz. I don't know if you guys have seen them play, but they were one of, I think about up and coming teams. Those guys are really good. They had a great tournament at Montclair, and they lost in the quarters to Regalado Salazar, 7-6, 6-1. So they played a phenomenal first set. I saw a couple of points of that.
I had Ethan on the podcast a few weeks ago. He played at SMU. And I think he was first singles there. He was a big time. I think he was a #1 high school player out of New York as a senior. But they are super young and athletic. And then Ethan, I don't want to jump ahead, but Ethan also changed partners and played with Rafa Coutinho. And they had they played. It was in Baltimore. I think they played Guy and Alex. Is it Thaler?
Taylor?
Yeah, Taylor. And they were up 5-2 in the first set. Guy won the set 7-5, and Rafa got hurt, and they had to call the match. But Ethan's, it doesn't matter who Ethan's playing with; he's having success.
Yep. Last year we saw the rise of Davic and Pardo, and they got themselves where, I don't know. I'm not sure that I would put him in a conversation where I would put him top 5 in the country, but they're right there. They're incredible talent, so fun to watch. And I think once Enrique, is a little bit dramatic out on the court at times. He is so talented, and he goes 190 miles an hour the whole time. Once he settles down a little bit, and to Dave's point, saying how when the rollers, if you hit it and there's not that much movement with your legs, and you're not, you can hold that shot. It gives you a whole bunch. I think we'll see Enrique, Pardo, and those guys start to beat the very top teams in the men's game. They had a big win over Broderick and Christian in the quarters in a 3-set war. So even though there was no ad scoring there, that match still went on for hours and hours.
Yeah, I think I think in the last podcast, that the one thing I did say when Enrique learns to let the game come to him in the big points a little more and not trying to instill his, himself and take over too much. Once that switch gets flipped, sorry, I think he's going to be, he'll be right in it. I love watching him.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think, again, to everyone's point, yes, I still think that they press when they shouldn't, and maybe sometimes they play defensive when they could press a little bit. But, I mean, what separates the best teams year in and year out from everyone else is that they play the big points better than everybody else. And, some of that's experience. Some of that is they've been there. They've done that before. But, I think it's not – that's unfortunately for them, that's not something you can watch video and learn. You can't go out and practice it. You kind of have to get there, and you have to sort of get better at it, sort of on the job training, because, there's only going to be one way to play a 3-all deuce game in the semifinals of Chicago. There's only going to be one way to learn how to do it, and you kind of have to be there so that the next time you're there, you're kind of used to it. And that's the one thing about with their game of being a little bit more patient, being a little bit more selective, that sometimes could be with their personalities or just their mindset. It's not something that they could just go and practice and say, okay, I'm going to be more patient tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this to all of you, that on both the women's and men's side, there's been some big changes with partnerships this year. I'm not talking necessarily about who people are playing with, but you have a Johan and Stephen that aren't in the mix anymore. I mean, that opens up one whole side of the draw. I mean, how many times have they been in the men's semis or finals in the last however many years, right? And then, you have a new partnership with Lynn Burris, not playing with Macie, basically not playing paddle as of now. That opens up another half of the draw. I mean, it's going to be interesting. A lot of these young teams, both on the women's and men's side, all the teams that we're talking about, David, Mike, Patty, and Sean, there's a void there in a good way, where a team that learns from experience and has more experience can fill those holes. I mean, it's going to be filled by somebody. It's going to be filled by a team. And, there's so much talent on both sides. But, last year at Nationals, I think all of us would have inked in certainly 4 or 5 teams into the semis, right? I think we could all confidently say that, and we did that. I don't think so going forward. I mean, the year's young and the tour's young this season, but I mean, I think it's going to be exciting.
Well, Humphreys isn't playing as well, and I mean,
Exactly.
he definitely made a lot of runs. But so who is primed to take that 4th spot now that Johan and Stephen are out?
Well,
Fraser West.
I've got some nominations.
Go ahead, Patty.
Young Russell Benkind and his little bit older partner, Sven Burris. Sven, 2-time finals and nationals with 1 win with Mick Erdoya and 1 runner-up finish. Someone told me today, Ron Cummins, who watches as much live stream as I think all of us, he said that Russell played the best match he ever saw him play. And Russell is one of these guys where he's been in it a couple of years, and you look at Pardo and what we just said about him.
Yeah.
You almost say the same thing about Russell, where he's got it all and he's got every shot, and he's just got to, it just comes down to decision making, how you play those big points better, when you force it, when you have to take your foot off the gas. So Benkind, Burris, I mean, I think they're in the conversation big time. We have Weston Frazier, who went out last year in the quarters of nationals. Congrats. There's babies on board out there in Cincinnati with Frazier's with having their second. And Eric West and his wife having their first kid, I think. And so I think we'll see them later in the season, according to what I was told today. I think they could be contenders. I think Stojic and Grigorovic, I mean, they've proved it. 2 years ago, they're number 18 in the country. Now they're in everyone's top 5 or 6 teams, and they have a legitimate chance to win nationals, in my opinion. So I think that's where those would be mine. Besides the obvious ones.
They just beat Pardo, DeAndre, and Davic and last tournament, didn't they?
They did. And you know what? I wasn't surprised that they won.
3-3 in the quarters.
I was kind of surprised that they won 6-3, 6-3. I thought that could have been a little bit tighter of a match. I thought it would have been, maybe a little bit better of a match. But, I mean, Ken and Tommy are as talented as anybody out there. It's just, like when does when do they move the needle as to trying to be too talented and going for too much? Sometimes their amazing talent sometimes hurts them.
Well, I'll tell everyone this. We're going to see what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks, especially at Charities. I mean, we do know that there's 5 Grand Prix, but we also do know that Chicago is probably the most second sought after title in our game. And you'll see the teams, all these teams we're talking about, both on the women's and men's side, they're going to gain experience in the biggest moments. And the second biggest tournament of the year is about to come up. So a lot of these questions are going to be answered in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I looked online today. I didn't see Powers and Nunez signed up yet. I sent them a text because I was curious if they're going to Chicago. We never see Mark Powers this early in the season, and he's usually a colder weather paddle player. But he and Guy, I mean, they're just unbelievably talented together. What a phenomenal team. And for them to kind of, get through this weekend in the way they did, that was awesome to watch.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sorry, Sean. I'll tell you what, Patty and Dave, pleasure calling that match with you. But I think it's really cool on both sides of the net to see Regalado Salazar expanding how they can play, because they've been so successful, just absolutely letting teams implode and beat themselves. But it's kind of cool to see them speeding it up a little bit and trying different things, so they have all sorts of depth in their tactics, in their game. But Nunez and Powers, Sean, Patty, Dave, Mike, I mean, they looked pretty untouchable. I mean, I know they went down 4-1 in that second set, Dave, but I mean, those guys, when they're operating on all cylinders, they look hard to beat. I'll tell you that much.
Well, listen, when you go back and you watch that match again, Powers Nunez win the first set. Regalado Salazar didn't play bad.
Not at all.
They missed 3 more balls than Nunez and Powers. And then if you watch the second set, they were down 4-1, and they weren't playing bad. It was just that Regalado Salazar went back to the lockdown of, we're not going to lose a point.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of this, is that it's not like one team is playing worse than the other. It's that one team is playing better than what they were playing.
Well, and the lob to drive ratio of that match, it had to have been, 50-50. They were almost driving more balls than they were. And when I say they, Powers and Nunez were
both teams, Mike. Both teams.
Now, listen, I just want to let everyone know that wasn't a stat from Court Reserve. That was Daddy Statistics.
Yeah. Court Director.
Court Director. That was Daddy Analytics.
Well, hold on. Who's Daddy, Dave?
Yeah.
Big Daddy. Big Daddy got more.
And one thing, just going back to Pardo for 1 second, in Montclair, where they played that quarterfinal and beat Broderick Christian, it absolutely took everything out of Pardo. And I think that Enrique will learn from that, because he's got to learn. You got to, you go through these tournaments, and especially these tournaments are 1-day grinds. I mean, even the 2-day, it doesn't matter. They're all grinds. They're so hard because there's so many good players. But you got to kind of manage your energy and emotions. And I think that's the...
He was just throwing haymakers, huh? He was just throwing haymakers the whole time and wore himself out.
He was pretty flat. When I think they lost their semi, let's see. Yeah, they lost their semi to Ardoya McNerney 1-3.
So kind of won the battle but lost the war.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm looking at the sign up so far for Charities. McNerney, Morgan, Regalado, Salazar, Tommy G, and Tin, and then Russell Benkheim and Sven Gurus, and then you've got Cincinnati team Rob Bacher, Tyler Frazier, and then Tom Murphy and Ronnie Schneider, and then Thaler and Garcia Nieto.
Well, a lot of the top
haven't signed up yet.
They don't sign up yet. Everybody kind of sees their results, then they have to make their plans, and they have till Sunday night at midnight, I think, to sign up. And a lot of times, because I know when we do the planning for all the broadcasts, we kind of look at the signups, by about Friday or Saturday to kind of take a guess about what we're looking at, how many matches we're going to be streaming, all those kinds of things. And usually that's when a lot of teams come in.
Yeah.
Mike, you're hosting the 90 plus, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Frazier's playing in it on the day before Charities.
Yeah. Let me see who we got signed up for. We have, I think, 19 teams signed up for that.
Yeah, some of my friends are playing. I couldn't get a partner. I wanted to get out there. I did want to mention, I think Nunez and Powers have beaten Regalado and Salazar the last 3 times. Boston.
Nationals.
Short Hills last year, which, right? No.
No, not Short Hills, I don't think.
But they bought Nationals last year too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nationals and just this weekend, obviously.
It may have been a different, when you talk about matchups, I know that the only team really to beat Graham and Adam last year was Regalado and Salazar, but Nunez and Powers took care of that.
Well, that was also that was another almost a 5-hour match. Was that Salazar Regalado?
McNerney Morgan.
Yeah, that was a grind. But to I think Dave's point, it's all I forget who said it. It's about the matchups. It's who matches up with who. But I love this no ad scoring because it changes the factors. That's a whole nother thing that you have to look for.
Well, also to Guy's point of Regalado Salazar changing up their strategy and their style of play, and we talked about this on the air the other day, that I don't know if it's a good strategy against Nunez and Powers.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Nunez and Powers want to play fast. They move the ball side to side. They have their own system of play that, because they're so athletic and skilled, that they get away with it. And I don't know if everyone else that tries to beat them at their own game is going to be successful.
But it's also a factor of the righty-lefty combo too, that they can roll, they can run their schemes into the ad side as equally as they can the deuce side, and it's not that way for 2 righties.
Right.
Well, you know what? Really, really good points. And Dave and I were talking about this as we were watching the match the other evening. It's Regalado and Salazar are so good at playing slow. When I say slow, they know when to speed it up, but they were driving the ball more than I've seen them drive. They were hitting more rollers and spins. And against other teams in the earlier rounds, as good as those teams are up until the quarters or even semis, yes, it works. But Nunez and Powers play fast better than any other team that I've seen in recent history. I mean, you can't let Nunez come forward. You just can't, because I don't know who's going to have better hands.
Yeah.
And you can't let Mark Powers hit rockets off his forehand. And Nunez sets it all up. It's just constant pressure. So, yeah, Dave, I agree with you for sure. Regalado, Salazar have so much depth in their game, and it's really cool again to see them doing what they're doing this season. But against Nunez and Powers, if you're going to try to play them fast, I mean, it's going to come down to a shot-making exhibition, and I just don't know who's better than making shots and doing what he does in that hand-to-hand combat than Nunez. I don't know if there's anyone better
tell you who did. I mean, you look at Johan. I mean,
right.
It's like it's throwing gasoline on a fire. It's
exactly.
Just like you're trying to play fast against when you're, outmanned, outgunned. It doesn't. That might not make
he's actually baiting you to get involved in that show.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too. Even about Regalado, Salazar, they can probably bait teams into playing faster that aren't used to it, and they're going to be able to win doing that. But they're not baiting Nunez and Powers into it because that's what Nunez and Powers want.
Well, I'll tell everyone something else, and I'm just thinking about it as I'm about to say it. The reason Nunez and the reason Regalado and Salazar can do that against most teams is because they have phenomenal forehand volleys. And Dave, I said this to you on the air the other night. Nunez not only having a phenomenal forehand volley, but it's his lefty forehand volley in the middle. I mean, it's a sick volley. I mean, how good is it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, they volley well. And, I think for all of us, we could all agree that as instructors, we probably don't want to see it happening on live stream because you have club level players telling you what Guillermo Nunez is doing. And it's like, how can I break this to you gently and nicely? But unfortunately, you don't have the hands as Guillermo Nunez.
Just tell him it's not Nunez time, Dave.
No, I said, it's not Johnny time. It's Nunez time.
So you guys, let me talk about one other thing. When I didn't watch the whole final, I watched a little bit this afternoon. And what I'm a big Mark Powers fan, club president or vice president, something like that. I think his forehand volley is sick. It's unbelievable.
So crazy.
And I felt like he's the one that he handles some of those Salazar drives at the last second, and he kind of like snaps this little volley thing that I've never seen anyone in the game ever do as well as Mark Powers.
How about the sound, Patty? How about the sound?
Exactly. I was going to say, because when Guy and I were talking about it during the match, I don't even know if you can call it a volley. It's like a forehand block because he doesn't move his paddle. He just sets his paddle and squeezes the handle, and the ball comes shooting off it. Like Guy, we were talking about it, and there's no most people can't get away with forehand volleys because there's too much arm movement, too much motion. There's no motion in what he does. He literally sticks the paddle up and blocks the ball back.
But Dave, to your point, and for everybody, when they volley, the volleys are the most critical shot for every club level player to improve. And you can always improve your volley. You got to keep working on it. But I always think that I think that the volley is what hurts. I'll go out on a limb. Alvy and Jose are great. I love those guys. They're super talented. But you guys alluded to something during your stream about that you don't see them play the stagger like you do see the other teams. We see Morgan McNerney, and they switch. Adam is on top of the net, and Graham handles all the overheads. I think Alvy and Jose win nationals if they played. I think they're right in there with everybody. But they have to defend the drive against Nunez Powers, and they don't. They played a little closer to the net, Guy, to your point. But they still don't overcommit someone to get on top of the net where Powers and Nunez, I mean, they're just sick. Whatever it is, they just set their paddle and the ball comes off their paddle. It's amazing. So I would love to see, I'll just be curious to see if that matchup, when it happens again, if they kind of get a guy committed to cutting off that volley.
And you know what, just to add to that point, think about it, is we're all teachers of platform tennis. We tell all our students to close the net when the other team's moving in, expecting a drive. But to Patty's point, if you look at the highest level, the net team is probably most vulnerable with defending the drive when the two players are standing next to each other.
Absolutely. Confusion.
and it's a split-second confusion. Like when they're together and they're defending the drive, all you have to do is make them both blink at the same time and the ball's by them. With that
when they're off the
stagger,
net at the
Right.
highest level,
Right.
at the highest level in the sport.
yeah, when to Patty's point, when you have more of a role of who's the volley or who's the overhead, it's a little bit more clear cut and dry, and you kind of know in advance. When you're both next to one another, it, even though it shouldn't, it does give some people the sense of, well, we could both hit volleys and we could both hit overheads.
But I think, Dave, when you see forehand volleys, you cringe. I don't cringe because I can't reach a lot of things. And if I didn't reach some balls with my forehand volley, I wouldn't be able to play. So I have to hit forehand volleys sometimes. But Regalado and Salazar, they hit more than most. And I think that as they get closer to the net, like it doesn't seem at the beginning of the point, particularly I watch Alvey a little bit. I noticed like his paddle's kind of down low. He's not committed. And I think to have success against Nunes Powers, you got to volley and you got to volley deep. I feel like when they're flipping the paddle and those guys are hitting the dipping balls, they can't necessarily dictate off some of those volleys, I think, like other top teams. Graham can just shut down the opponent's drives. He just can get on top of the net, shuts it down. So I think that's a big difference with them.
Well, I mentioned this when Guy and I were doing the match the other day, that when Regalado Salazar got out to the 4-1 lead in the second set, it was because Nunes and Powers were hitting drives either taking a step back or they were behind the baseline. Whereas the first set, they were hitting drives from inside, 3 feet inside the blue.
Yeah, you're right. And they missed, and I think they missed a couple within those first 5 games, right?
Yeah.
In the second set. Yeah, I think you made the point that you're like, that might be the third drive that they've missed the entire time.
And I think it was just that they were, a combination. It was to what Guy said as well, is that Regalado Salazar started lobbing the ball better in the second set, and they weren't letting Nunes and Powers just carve the ball up. But I think it was also they volleyed much better when they were at the net as well, and they weren't allowing Powers and Nunes to be moving forward, hitting rocket drives.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. Regalado Salazar, last year, they played 7 finals. They won 6. Do they win 6 tournaments this season?
No.
Wow, Sean, bold first place choice there.
How many total tournaments did they play together?
Last year, a lot. I mean, they play a ton of tour events. They reached 7 finals last year. They won 6 tournaments.
Do they win? Undefeated through Short Hills, right? Was that what you said, Guy? They didn't lose a match in the first half of the season.
They didn't lose until Detroit.
No, and that's Graham and Adam didn't. They won outside of Regalado and Salazar.
Regalado and Salazar, didn't they lose to Nunes
They lost to Drew and Tomas.
Salazar in Detroit?
They lost to Drew and Tomas in Detroit.
No, I called the match. It was thought it was Graham and.
Hold up, you want to bet $1, Mikey?
Sure.
I have the answer right here. What event?
Let's go. Let's hear it.
What tournament? Which
Detroit.
one do you want?
Detroit.
Okay. When was Detroit last year? Second half of the season. McNerney Morgan won their second event of the year over Nunes Salazar.
Boom, you owe me $1.
Nunes who?
Salazar.
Where did Tomas and Drew beat Salazar Regalado?
That was early season. That was really early season, I thought.
No, it wasn't.
No?
No.
It was Dwayne Hayden.
Yes. Dwayne Hayden.
Yeah, Broderick Christian won Long Island, you guys. And they beat Alvey and Jose in the finals there.
What month was that?
Let me see. It was right after Westchester last year and right before the Fairfield Open, so I'm guessing December.
Mike, I still owe you $1.
Yeah, you did.
All right, Venmo's coming.
You owe me $1 from Saturday.
Well, Patty, my one, I did have one question. What is it going to take for Regalado and Salazar to win the whole thing this year, and you laid out the blueprint,
You're
Yep.
talking to me or Patty?
Patty.
So, I don't know.
Well, I'll say this too, Sean and Dave, Mike, Patty, David. I mean, it just comes down to matchups. I mean, I think when we play in the stagger on the ad side as two righties, it's pretty black and white. When you move over to the deuce side, it comes down to who you're playing against. As to Patty's point, are they lobbing more? Are they driving more? But your job description doesn't change. I mean, if you're on the left side, you're hitting overheads. If you're on the right side, you're hitting volleys as two righties. Nunez Powers, going back to our best lefty-righty team in the game right now, those guys, and Dave, you and I talked about this numerous times over the finals we just called. Those guys do a tremendous job of letting one another take control when they can hit offensive overheads, stepping way inside the court and spinning balls. And they're two very different types of spins Power's spin is different from Nunez's spin. Nunez's spin is in the snowboards. Power's spin is dying and kicking back to the net. I mean, it's just beyond, the concentration you have to defend that. But those guys do a really good job of that. At the Nationals last year, the confusion in the middle, I don't want to say it cost them the match, but probably cost them. That match was almost 6 hours long, Mike, and
I think it did cost them.
I do too. It cost them, but they can get away with it. And by the way, if they didn't have that confusion, maybe they would have won that match. But you saw how well it works for them in this last week's final. So,
Hey, Sean, the real producer of this podcast, I think after Chicago, we're going to have to gather up the troops again and talk a lot about the women's game and the women's players. It's kind of getting late today, and we focused a lot on the men's game. So we would all love to come back and do another episode for you and really dig deep into the women's game and all the great players, the up-and-coming players, what our predictions will be on the women's side.
All right, quick, put you on the spot, Patty. Let's talk. Give me the finalists in the Chicago Charities.
Who's playing?
Well, go, Mike.
Men or women?
We've got.
We know the men, women.
Women. Paige Lopez.
Hanish and Zabori, Sakura Morgan, and this is only who's signed up. Alvaro Matrika. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Maturka.
Jackson in Cube. Mihailovic, Bukian.
Yeah.
And then Audrey Banks, Sydney Barons.
Okay, I'll make my pick.
Okay.
Paige Lopez. Team number 2, Hanish and Zabori.
Okay.
They lost that heartbreaker semifinals of Nationals, one of the greatest paddle matches any of us ever saw.
Yeah, that was.
They'll come back with purpose, and I think they're doing a lot of paddle, but they'll be turning their efforts to paddle in Chicago. So I expect a really strong showing from them.
How about one team to watch?
One team to watch? Well,
Davis and Tansel.
Okay. Camille Townsend,
I like it.
Michelle Newbay.
They had a great run.
If Michelle and Townsend come in, they're one of the teams that's impressing a lot of people right now. But so I just, like I said, I don't know who's playing.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But Morgan Sakura got to the finals this weekend. But I still think Hanish and Zabori have a lot of magic left in their tank. So I'll predict they get through. It impacts the draw. I don't know who. They would be the 1 and 2 seeds, right? They'd be separated. And then I'll stick with them. You guys agree?
Hey, Mike, is Macie Elliott signed up?
She is not, Dave.
I don't see her on the list yet.
I talked to her this morning. She's not signed up. She might play. She's trying to figure it all out.
Can I ask a quick question as it relates to partnerships? Because I'd love to get your perspective. I know, Patty, we talked a little bit about it before. A lot of people are playing with different partners in some of these early tournaments. There's some people, we mentioned Macie. We don't know who she's playing with. Ellie Hallbauer played with Allison Morgan. Her regular partner is Jill Jackson. What is the benefit of playing with different partners? We all know what the benefit is with playing with the same partner, right? There's a familiarity. You're working on your game together, individually and collectively. What is the benefit for these players to play with different partners?
What I said to you this afternoon is we've seen a lot of switching the partners more on the men's side, typically at the top, and there's so much depth in the men's game where these guys can call each other up, and I can live in Cincinnati and you call someone up from Connecticut and you go out there and you're competing, maybe you get to the semis or something because you're not that well-oiled machine, but two players can combine. And I think it keeps you fresh as a player. I think that mixing it up a little bit lets you expand your own game. Sometimes when you watch matches, it's the repetition over and over. And, like when's the last time you saw Adam Morgan hit a flat overhead, Mike Raleigh? You're in Chicago. Does he ever hit the
No, he rolls everything, I mean,
but if he wasn't playing with, Graham, maybe he would have to play a different style. And that's my
and I'd piggyback on that. I think it allows players to maybe play a different role, different style to fit kind of their partner that weekend. And you never know, they might be testing the waters, and I don't
on-court audition.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. I mean, seeing if they catch fire in a bottle.
Yeah.
You got it.
Well, like I'm looking at the signups, Jill Jackson isn't playing with Hellbauer.
She's not. Which is interesting. I think that's kind of fun.
Who's Hellbauer playing with?
Maturka.
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 Which has more a little more offense, I would say, than Jill Jackson.
I think as a team they'll be a stronger team. I think she's got a few more offensive weapons.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Well, I think from watching, that's what Hellbauer needs, because I don't know why these women even hit the ball to her.
Yeah.
Like, to steal Guy's word, when these women hit the ball to Hellbauer, it's just silly.
Yeah.
Because she can hurt you with the forehand, the backhand. So she kind of needs, it doesn't work out a lot well when you have two teams that are pretty big off the ground, forehand and backhand. But I think for her, she needs someone big off the ground with forehands and backhands so that she can see more balls. Right. Or that when she doesn't see the ball, the other player is able to attack, not just put it back in play.
Well, why are Paige and Lopez so good? How did they just soar? Because they feed off each other offense. Like it kind of took me way back to Doughton Keene when they came on the scene. And they just, if you hit a short volley, you knew you were going to eat the next ball.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you hit it to.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't matter. And I totally agree. That's why I think Paige and Lopez are phenomenal together, because it's constant pressure. That's how I feel like Alvy and Jose is a team when they came out and all of a sudden, we started seeing them play. They're relentless with feeding off each other for offense.
Yeah.
How did Macie, I know we talked about Lalich early, but how did Macie and Lalich play together?
They were phenomenal.
That'd be a scary team.
Yeah, that was their first, high-level competitive match together as a team, and maybe we'll see more of them. Maybe not. Who knows? I think a lot's still going to be determined during the season. But if those two play tournaments, watch out.
She hits a forehand that.
Oh my Lord! A forehand, a backhand, but her overhead.
Laser beam. Yeah, she hits a nasty roller too. So
Macie played the ad. I know that she switched over for a period of time to the deuce. What do you think that's if they play together again, that's the way they're going to set up?
I think that Macie is a brilliant mind on the court, and I think she understands a little bit more of some of the nuances than Lisa. Lisa doesn't have anywhere near the tournament experience.
Yeah.
And so I think that Macie likes to direct traffic from over there, and she's going to work on certain parts of her game, and I think to her credit, she's always looking for the next thing. And I actually had a conversation with her, a little bit of a chat. She's working on, coming up with some more offense off the screens. She just always wants to get herself better. And I think, she and Lynn were a phenomenal 3 straight national championships together. But I think it's exciting also to be alongside Alalich because she brings a totally different element to the game. So I hope we get to see, them play a couple more tournaments. I think it'd be really great for the sport.
Just to add to that, I mean, I thought they were a good team. I thought, honestly, they were going to win the second set the other day when Patty and I called that match. The one thing, Patty, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, but I think if they were to play together, I think Macie needs to figure out a way to apply more pressure from the backhand side. Not at the same level, but I've played the forehand side, the backhand side, and I find that it's way easier to apply pressure from the forehand side or the deuce side than it is from the ad side. Like I have a harder time creating opportunity, adding pressure from the ad side, and maybe that's something just from playing the forehand side or the deuce side so much, that she just has to figure out a way. How can she add? Because it's kind of 2 different mindsets a little bit, and I think it's just the angles and the way of the court dynamics. I think it's a little bit different. And my only thing would be is if she's going to play the backhand side, I think she's got to figure out ways to add more pressure to the other team.
How about standing in a little bit closer on a return of serve, Dave?
Standing in closer, not just giving away the lob. Like I said to Patty, that was a pretty close match that they played against Lopez and Page, and Macie didn't hit one return as drive return, a serve.
Right. And I think, it was their first time playing, so hopefully we'll see more of them. Who knows? But
and it's not like she can't do it because she can certainly do it.
Absolutely.
Super interesting that you have 3 really talented women between Macie, Lalich, and Hallbauer, and it's the end of October, and we don't know who any of them are going to be playing with when the season really gets going.
Hey, that makes it fun, Sean.
I think so. All right, it's getting late. Do we want to call it and then reconvene after Chicago for ladies?
But can I ask Mike Raleigh a question, Sean?
Of course.
Lay it on me. Let's go.
Who are going to be the finalists in your event on Friday of Charities?
Oh man,
It's got to be Tyler.
He's playing with Mark Keeby. That's a solid team there.
I mean, you have a -17 playing against 35s.
Yeah, but there's some.
But that's what makes the event so awesome.
Yeah,
Mike, what do you have? A couple of sneaky 27s in that draw?
Yes, he
I'm
does.
just
You
looking at
know
it.
them.
There's some.
Mike, just make your picks, please. It's not.
All right, hey, I'm just trying to pull it up.
Guy needs to go to sleep pretty soon, so you got to make your picks.
Dave, Nuremberg and O'Neill are playing.
Ryan Baxter and Big Tuna at Burns, they've won it. They won it last year or 2 years ago. They don't count them out.
Mike, you're up $1 on me already. Let's go. Pick, and I'll take the other side.
Tyler Frazier, he'll be a finalist, I bet.
All right, I'll take Frazier.
Dan Hansen and Jay Woldenberg.
Ooh.
Come on.
That's an interesting combo.
There. Holy smokes.
I don't know about that. That's a show right there.
That is a
You
show.
think Dan Hansen's going to eat Waldenberg's peanut butter and jelly out of his bag?
Oh, yeah. I'd be drinking out of that coffee mug, too, just chugging the coffee. Yeah.
I don't even want to think about that.
That might be 3 of our 4 finalist teams. I don't know.
Okay, and Mike, in the main draw, men, pick the 2 finalists.
Wow. I am going to say I'm going to go with. Well, we can't because we don't know who's coming. Nunez Powers have to be my number 1 pick, but I also got to go with the hometown.
Yeah.
Did
you say Adam and Graham? Mike?
Adam and Graham. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my finals right there. Book it.
Book it.
Book it.
All right, Sean, we'll see if any of us are really psychics or not.
Probably not.
Sean, thank you so much.
No, thank you all. I could talk paddle for hours, so I greatly appreciate this.
And so can all of us.
Yeah.
Of course. Thanks for all you do, Sean.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Thank you.